Welcome to Darkly Lit, where we wander through the grittier parts to unearth the boogeyman that hides in the shadows. We are the Three Kings. I'm your first king, Kayla King. To the right of me is my husband, David King.
My Spanish might be rusty, but is this song really entirely about a girl's butt?
And to the north of us is our adopted child.
The third king, Jesse Reyes. I completely forgot about the whole Three Kings thing, so when you said it, I was like, what? Oh. And then I tried not to laugh, and then David's talking about butts.
Well, I mean...
And then he ruined it. Actually, that was perfect.
That's a direct quote from the novel.
I remember it, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important that we reestablish that we are the Three Kings because it is December, and we have to go give some gifts to a baby, I think. You know, what with us being the Three Kings and all.
Oh, shit, do we really?
Yeah, it's a star. There's a big star, and it's, like, pulsating in my mind, and it's giving me horrible eldritch nightmares, and it's like, you have to give presents to a baby. And I'm like, okay, sure.
Could you imagine if that was written like a horror novel? Like, oh my god, the star's
Ooh, talking! I would read that.
Oh, man.
Okay, we're gonna travel, and this baby's gonna end up being Baby Yoda, because that's what's on everyone's mind right now.
Oh my god! I want this. I don't know if there could be an artist rendition or whatever, but I want a nativity scene with Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian looking over it Baby Yoda in a manger.
You know someone's gonna do it.
It's gonna happen.
It's bound to already be out there.
I hope so. I really do. Oh, man, that would make my day. So we read a novel.
We did.
We read a young adult novel.
It has nothing to do with...
Baby Yoda.
Or Christmas.
With the Star Wars or the Christmas, no.
In fact, it's set during the summer.
Yes. It's called 5 Midnights by Ann Dávila Cardinal. Or is it Davia?
Davia.
Davia?
Davia.
Okay. Davia Cardinal. Actually, the author, when we announced this on Twitter, liked and started following the Darkly Lit podcast, so this brings me joy. If we're pronouncing...
Hi, Anne, if you're listening, thank you for following us. We hope we hope you're enjoying this.
We're sorry.
We enjoyed your book.
Yes, I will say it right off the bat.
We're going to attempt to talk about it.
We're going to attempt to talk about it. We all enjoyed it.
We did, actually.
It sounds like, first and foremost, did we like the book?
Yes.
And if we mispronounce your name, we are so sorry.
I should actually grab the copy that I have right now. Oops,
yes,
sorry.
We actually bought the book. We were going.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. We were going to borrow it from the library, but then we decided, you know what? I think we'd rather buy it. Like, it'd be good to have on our shelves.
Yeah.
We haven't bought a book in a while, with the exception of I did buy a nerdy D&D book for David for his birthday, but...
because my wife knows me so well, so...
I got my copy from the local library. Support your local libraries. Yes. And when did this come out? Because this is my library. I think I was the first person to check it out, because it is a brand new and very clean copy.
It is very new. June 2019.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, this... just came out this year. This is not an old book at all.
Okay.
So, who would like to give the description?
I'll do it.
Or let me do it. I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, well, let's have Say do it.
Okay.
All right, so this book was actually very relatable for me. It is about a girl named Lupe who is visiting family, specifically her uncle and aunt in Puerto Rico. I forgot specifically where. But
it's San Juan, right?
But it's kind of all...
not familiar with Puerto Rico, like...
Old San Juan is a major location in the novel,
yeah.
But I think it's in a few places. It's in a few places in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So...
Okay.
But she's visiting her uncle, who is the chief of police in that area, and it's her first time visiting without her father's company, and she learns of a terrible murder. Because we all love a good murder. And behind her uncle's back, she starts to her own investigation that leads her to meet a young man named Javier, who is also connected to murder and some following murders, and they team up to solve a supernatural mystery that involves El Cuco, which I know more as El Cucuy, but yes. Should we leave it there?
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about the whole book, so like,
yeah,
spoilers abound. So
spoilers in abundance, and we hope that our the Good Book Club listeners, you read the book and joined us or joining us after having read 5 Midnights.
If you haven't, please stop and read the book. It actually is a good read.
We do all recommend it.
Yes.
So if you want to finish this episode without any spoilers, go read it first and then come back.
I will say
do that.
You know what? Let me do a non-spoiler part because usually we would do questions, right? But we actually offered another suggestion, which is, what is a boogeyman or a monster that you grew up with or someone that your parents told you to scare you? And
scare you into behaving.
Exactly. Because that's probably another thing we should discuss is what is El Coco or El Cucuy?
El Cuco.
El Cuco. Because that is actually a famous monster. Or it is a monster that is told to young Latino children to behaving.
Fun fact, once, in a really weird way, was once famously... well, maybe not famously, was once actually played by Danny Trejo.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He voiced El Cucuy in a maze they did at Halloween Horror Nights one year that was based on El Cucuy. So
I also know for a fact Sade has once mentioned growing up with El Cucuy.
Yeah, it was definitely one that I thought my mom had made it up because I'd never heard anyone else talk about it. But she would, tell us as kids, like, I'll go to bed or do this or El Cucuy is going to come and get you. And I was like, ooh. And then I was so fond of that, actually. Like, it never really scared me because she never went into any actual detail of, like, what El Cucuy would do or where he would take us. Or it was just like, he'll come and get you. That was it. So I guess that's a little scary in itself, but I was very fond of it as I got older. And when Twitter first came around, my username was El Cucuy.
Oh, that's
before
awesome.
I changed it. So yeah, so the spelling was wrong because I didn't know. I never had seen the written word, but yeah, it was El Cucuy.
Well, you mentioned that your mother, you thought she made it up, so
yeah. So, and then I learned about it in more detail later. David, did you grow up with a boogeyman or monster?
I did not. I was one of those kids who just had sort of the arbitrary sense of, like, there's something out there that wants to get me. It wasn't anything. It was nebulous. But my parents never did the whole, like, do this or that or a boogeyman will get you or something. But the closest thing I had to that was when I was about 10. We moved to the San Jacinto Mountains, and there's a town up there called Idlewild. And when we got there, I found out that the town and the mountains and even a part of Palm Springs on the other side has a legend associated with it about the spirit of the cannibal spirit of a shaman called Takish. He was a legend about the Cahuilla people, and Takish is said to be this ghost that or demon that lives under Takish Peak in a cave made of glass. And I thought, being someone who always who grew up in a really boring part of Orange County as a kid, was like, oh my gosh, I finally moved somewhere with some actual cool local folklore. So rather than being scared, it made me want to go and track down all the bits and pieces I could about the mystery. Never really did, but it was cool whenever I would stand in the middle of town and look up, and there's that imposing rock formation that looms over everything. And I've told, and Kayla knows what I'm talking about because she's seen it. You've seen Takish. Takish Peak.
I want to go explore it at some point.
It's well known for mountain climbers because it's this big like sneer of rock that sticks out from one of the mountains. So it's cool. I don't know all the details of it. I just know that there's supposedly this Native American folklore that of Takish, the evil shaman spirit monster thing.
Like you, I didn't have a monster, or like there was never any monster that my mom or dad would say, "Oh, don't do this," or "This will come and get you." I did. So I had a jerk big sister moment though.
Oh no!
Because there was at the point when I realized, again, spoilers for any little kids listening out there. Hopefully there isn't. When I realized the tooth fairy wasn't real. And my sister, but my mom said, "Oh, don't tell your sister, though. I don't want you to ruin the magic for her." I made up a whole lie saying, "Oh, you better be careful about where you hide your tooth, because the tooth fairy punishes bad kids." Like, actually, I had a friend or a neighborhood kid that like backed me up, and she's like, "Yeah, there was a point that." My sister didn't put her tooth under the pillow, and then the next day she had green fur on her arm, and I'm like, and my sister was just like, I don't know if she remembers this. So, but yeah, I was.
I may or may not bring this up surreptitiously around Christmas just to see if she remembers.
I just remember saying that. I don't know if she believed me. I don't know if she did, but she was kind of just. Like, I remember her face being shocked and being like, what? Like, kind of confused. I probably... But when you have, like, two kids and one of them being your sister saying, yeah, the tooth fairy's gonna come and get you.
Wow.
I was a jerk sister.
Fair enough.
But we do have a few who also commented on monsters. Zath actually mentioned, like, same as us, his parents weren't really the type to use scare tactics, but he did have his own monster that he thought of, which was a weird cat creature that he feared would jump on him when he turned on the lights in the room.
Oh. Yeah, that reminds me of, like, all the times that I would, like, run and dive into bed so my feet were not close to the edge of the bed. Not for any other reason other than it's that surreptitious fear that something would come out and grab my ankles, you know?
Yeah. And then the other two include, I got one from Alan and one from Fishmech. These, I think, are more interesting ones. So Alan put, there was a fence that separated where I used to live in Virginia from a creek, and me and all the neighborhood kids all used to climb the fence and catch frogs, and we even built a weird fort thing. He also I decided to put this here because we all peed there all the time. We called it Take a Leak Creek. So
my comedy writing partner, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, one of the kids' parents didn't want him going near the creek. Admittedly, there were snakes up there, so they made up this weird ghost called Old Pete, who protected the creek, and he didn't like kids playing there. This kid would tell them all what his parents told them, and we just had to find Old Pete, so that backfired. They're like, oh my gosh, there's a ghost, let's go find him.
Hey, you guys want to see a dead body? Stand By Me starts playing.
And then Fishmech, this is their story. The house we moved to when I was 5 straight up had someone die in the yard a few months before we moved in. So apparently a college kid worked for a construction company, and they were sent down into the trench. The water pipes were laid through the side, and the sides collapsed. Oh, geez. Oh. So I'm trying to read this.
Dang.
And what's worse is he only needed to be there because a contractor had sabotaged the lines to some of the houses, requiring the lines to be dug up and replaced.
Oh.
So, as a result, his parents would say, "Oh, we have a ghost on the property," and if you were bad, that he would come and get you. And then he says, and independently from the first time, I was told about what had happened shortly after we moved in. I became concerned I might do something to make him show up, or that he might be hiding as a ghost in the closet if I left the light on.
Yikes. See, like, that would have gotten to me as a kid. Because, like, ghosts are spooky, man.
Mm. Well, in this case, the parents, in Five Midnights, their reasoning for threatening El Cuco to the 5 kids is kind of a legitimate reason. I'm not gonna lie.
It wasn't because they weren't eating vegetables.
No.
Well, that's definitely one of the places I would like to start the conversation is, so we have, I like that we're introduced to, and this is one of the things I like about the novel. We get the setting is established really well, just in the little things that all the different characters do and sort of traditions that are carried through. And Los Congrejos is a great name for these 5 kids.
So, the murders surround these 5 boys. They're called the Los Congrejos because that means
the crabs
in Spanish.
They're the crabs
in Spanish because they were born in June or late
July.
July.
I know this. I remembered this because one, they're cancers. I'm a Cancer.
Huzzah.
Guillermo Memel.
Yes.
Who is, I believe, the second murder.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
His birthday is my birthday.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we name them in order from when they're born, it's Vico, Memo, Carlos.
No. Yes.
Carlos is next, and then
Izzy.
Then Javier.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it begins in actually the story changes point of view, and it starts with Vico, and Vico's a drug dealer. He has a lot of money, and they're all about to turn 18. By the way, they are right on the verge of their 18.
Great at the start of manhood and the end of childhood.
Very significant that they all need to die. They all are killed just before. That's the 5, and there's the 5 midnights right there.
Yes.
Although weirdly, like technically speaking, only 4 of the 5 midnights happen because Carlos is able to avoid it.
Well, Carlos
because he's the one that got sort of swept away from the island and came back later.
He was
and he cleaned up his life.
Yeah,
completely.
Okay, and when we mean clean, we do mean it in the drug sense.
Right. That's the
technically he. I mean, aside from being caught at the initial start with the group, he never lived a life of crime.
Right.
That's true.
So he was clean the entire time. Unlike Javier, who had only recently
gotten clean.
Oh, it's funny because he even had a better track record than Izzy. Izzy had only been clean for 2-3 months.
Yeah.
At the start of the novel. Yeah.
And actually, that's one thing I wanted to address. So the best parts I think of the novel are actually the grittier parts for me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think what caught me was the description of... so this isn't... Okay, there is spoilers.
Yeah, we're talking freely about the book now. It's okay. We don't have to necessarily break it into categories, because this is a free-form discussion.
Yeah, sorry, I've been doing so much animusings.
Yeah, I know.
So Vico's death starts it, and the way that it's described is okay, this book is going to be good. I knew, that first chapter hooked me immediately, especially... how his death comes about, and then actually a lot of my favorite parts are when El Cuco comes to get them.
Yeah.
It's just so eerie. And the fact that all of them are, or most of them are drug addicts and are dealing with addiction in different ways.
It's really framed as sort of a symptom rather than something that's necessarily their fault, though, which is interesting because the other thing the novel explores is sort of just how the island is, or the urban life on this island is changing and decaying in a lot of ways, because the narcotics dealers have moved in when they moved in when the recession hit, and then now they're peddling drugs to the kids, and it's taking over, and it's just it's sad. It's a really sad picture of how things are going, or how things were, maybe how they are still. I mean, in parts of Puerto Rico, and it has an angle where it kind of explores gentrification as well,
yes,
which I also really dig. And I feel that's really framed when we get to see the parts where Marisol is the
it takes
is the center of attention.
Marisol is Vico's sister, and I mean, I think her character is handled very well, and also it's a little iffy too, because I think she was made out to be a little too strongly harsh at a certain point.
Maybe
she was. I don't know if dramatic, maybe extreme, but not. I had a. She's probably the character I had the most difficult time with. But I know why she was so extreme, because like it got to the point of like you could feel the buildup, like, oh, they're gonna face like the way, because she was so extreme. I thought it was gonna be like, okay, they're gonna deal with El Cuco, but then it's gonna be like Marisol is gonna be the real monster that they face at the end, because she was so intense.
I know.
Yeah, that's what I thought. When it got to the
especially with the whole Sebastian part, like that, like Father Sebastian.
Oh, yeah.
Padre Sebastian. Sorry,
Padre Sebastian.
I was like, oh my god, like that part actually kind of surprised me, like in a good way, but at the same.
No, it was great.
Like they definitely let us think that she was that unhinged.
Like the fact that she's just like, she blames Lupe for so many things just because she looks like she's a gringa, but like you know, and it's just she's
half gringa. She's
half gringa, but she looks it.
She's a gringa Rican, is what
she's
she
gringa Rican. I did like those words. But like Marisol, it's like I get why like she would have been pushed that way, because just she's not the circumstances of what. Like her mom dying, watching her brother get sort of taken over by, you know, become a criminal and become a narcotics dealer,
and then also dying. It's just she's
losing her home, and then she just all she sees, and I like that they mentioned, like in the book, she's going to like political rallies about how Puerto Rico wants to be independent again. Like she's a radical, and she like wants things to go back to the way they were, and it's hard. She sees the decay that's, you know, happening to the island, but like she blames everybody else, you know, and she's like, and she's like, you are representative of everything that's wrong, Javier, this is why you're represented that, and gringa bitch, this is why you are the worst. And the part I was really looking forward to in the book was actually the confrontation between Lupe and Marisol at the end. And then, well, I think the end is interesting. I really want to talk about that, but I mean, should we rip that Band-Aid off now?
About the ending?
About the ending? How I feel about the ending? Or do we wait on that? Let's wait on that. You know what? I'll come back to that.
Yeah, let's talk. I guess let's talk about stuff that we liked right now.
It's not that I didn't. It's not that I disliked it. It's more like I just have some questions mainly. But again.
Actually, what did you think, Sade? What did you think of the ending?
At the end, no, I want to hear David's first, because I also have some mixed feelings about the end, but I'm realizing I'm also really picky about endings, which is terrible of me because I suck at endings.
No, that's fair.
No, I get you.
Yeah.
But I was with David too, because there's a point where David, like I asked David, like, oh, what do you think of the book? Because I read it before him, and he's like, I couldn't put down, it's so good, but and I'm like, but, and he did do the whole like pause, like, but, and I said, it's the ending, right? And he's like, yeah.
So
okay,
so I think we're all on the same page on that. Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think the novel does a superb job being sort of couched in that, like, pulling moments of goodness out of this, you know, pretty bleak setting. I kind of, again, the parts that work, I like the grittiness of it, that also ties in with a potentially metaphorical but then genuinely supernatural threat of El Cuco. And I like how sort of that old tradition ties in with just the just general kind of disease of the island and or of the narcotics and the way it had affected these boys' lives, you know, and the people around them. And I kind of liked that it was played straight, you know. There was all that, like, there's all this weaving in and out of like really touchy stuff, you know. And you know, when Padre Sebastian is stabbed and it seems like he died, like, I was like, oh, this is where it really gets real, because like the part where I'm like, my stomach dropped out is when Javier goes back to Omar, his old dealer, And
Yeah.
No.
I was actually a little frustrated with Javier being like, really? Really? That's where you're gonna go? Like, I get it, but like, obviously that's not what Padre Sebastian would have want. Like,
Yeah,
Exactly.
which
I
is
feel
why
like
I'm
he would have
really-
taught you better.
Which is why I'm really proud of him when he didn't ultimately go through with it. He gets there. He feels the addiction pulling at him, and he feels the whole well, I got to do this because I want to face El Cuco head on or whatever. He feels hopeless, but then he finds the willpower to make it stop. And I was so proud of him as a character. And we'll go back to them. Of course, I like the main characters a lot. I like both Lupe and Javier. I like when we switch between their perspectives. I think this is one of those books where the perspective swapping actually works really well.
So, the one thing, okay, it's less of a dislike and more, this is just me as a person looking back, like, oh, you're such a teenager.
This is a young adult novel.
This is a young adult.
Okay. I think Kayla's going to hit on something that I also wanted to hit on. Continue.
Why don't you get that now?
Yeah.
Get that now. Do it.
Okay, so are teenagers really this horny? Because, like, I was a really horny teenager. I will confess to that. Like, oh my god, I was a horny teenager. But I don't think, like, I was that horny.
Horny to the point where you bump into, like just brush past a girl in an elevator, and you're like, and you have an erection.
Oh god.
I was like, wow, you guys are so.
I mean, different strokes, lol, for different folks, but
I mean, that's
Maybe it's that fiery Puerto Rican blood, you know, like maybe that's why it's so intense.
maybe. I mean, keep in mind these are the same kids who are like, we have to be men now. Let's do cocaine on our 13th birthday.
Oh my god.
Definitely,
Which is
definitely
also
for
tragic.
like
Again,
for
I'm
like
not-
Javier and those kids, like they grew up fast because
did.
of what they
They
put
had
themselves
to.
into, the world they threw themselves into. You would have to grow up fast to survive that.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
So from Javier's perspective, it wasn't bothering me too much, but like, I don't know. Then again, Lupe is a girl. Okay, no. Okay, I forgived it. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
you do you. I'm nothing against people being horny.
But there's another thing too. It's the fact she keeps saying like, "Well, I guess they've never met a feminist before," and I'm like, "God, you're such a teenager."
But I think I that endeared it to me because they both behave like teenagers.
Yeah, they do.
But more
Yeah.
specifically, they behave like I expect teenagers to behave in a YA novel.
Yeah, but here's the funny part is,
Which is not a criticism necessarily.
No, it's not. It's not like it's more for me. I'm kind of just looking back, sort of like whenever I look back on 16-year-old Kayla, and I'm just like, oh god, 16-year-old Kayla. Oh, go ahead.
What it is we're adults in our 30s now. So and like anything like high school romancy dramas is cringy for us.
It is.
Well, okay, that's not true. Whenever I read queer teen romantic stories, I find it adorable.
Okay, if I read queer anything, I'm 100% in, no matter like how bad it is.
Yeah,
So
if it's queer, I'm with Sade. If it's queer, like because I have read actually quite a bit of like lesbian romance stories of like high schoolers, and I'm just like, this is so adorable. This is my ship right now. And then also same with like gay men, and I'm like, oh my heart, my babies. But
I know. Sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, but with the straight romances or heterosexual romances, I'm just like, oh, you're just so horny.
Well, to be fair, I don't know if I could. I mean, obviously, there's a gap there, but like when it comes to Javier's perspective, I'm like, I can kind of see that. I don't know if I was ever that much of a horn dog, but I can remember times when I was around, when I was a teenager and I was around certain girls, and I was just like, oh my god,
Oh my god, our knees are touching.
ah! Oh, she's smiling at me, and there's a look in her eyes. Does this mean is this gonna be a thing? Can I like hold her hand? If I hold her hand, is she gonna see that I have that? Am I gonna have to hide certain things? Do I have to move my legs a certain way to hide certain things?
It's okay.
Oh man.
This is not nearly as bad as Electric Boner. Like,
Oh no. Nothing is ever as bad as Electric Boner. Let's be real. But
in
like,
terms of how horny those boys were, like, wow.
no, this is measured and restrained, and like kind of, I think it matches up. And I
It
remember,
was-
like I said,
it
I
was a
remember feeling
little-
like kind of like this at 17.
Okay, go ahead,
So-
Sadie.
It was a little exaggerated, but for teenagers, it's all still believable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like for like all the characters are wonderfully written. Like they're all very believable, all very grounded. They're aside from like maybe the really grumpy professor guy, like I loved all the characters.
The grumpy professor felt very cartoony.
Yeah, that was my issue with him. He was a little, just cartoony. That was the perfect word.
It felt out of place a little bit. I mean, I like that he got everybody like, I am this professor character, and I'm like, okay, I know we need the information from someone, and he definitely was a character. I'll give it that much. But he just, again, with the setting, he just felt so out of place. Keep in mind, a few chapters ago, we'd had a really good sort of self-contained story where Memo shoots a convenience store clerk.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of my favorite parts. Also because I was shipping Memo and Angel. I was like, I bet they're like crushing on each other. Okay, that was me. But that was just me. But yeah, that part was very real for me. When another of my favorite characters was Izzy. And when he's like,
too,
like when they go to get information from Angel, and he's like staring at those drugs, like watching someone shoot at him, like how it just like that felt very real to me.
Yeah,
and those scenes I really enjoyed.
Those moments are great.
But Grumpy Professor dude, he took me very out of the whole story because it was just like, oh, this is that cliche scene in like almost any like horror movie. Like it didn't, where they go and find, like they go to the professor, they go to the library or whatever, and like
Professor Eccentric.
Yeah, I wish they had gotten that information from like Vico's abuela. Like that's where I thought they would get.
Cool.
That would have made more sense to me.
I really liked Vico's abuela. Like I like that she was in the beginning, and then she ultimately had a place in the plot, even all the way to the end.
Absolutely.
Like I like that she understood what had happened, like from the beginning, but she didn't want to almost like believe it because she was just there. I don't know if she willed it to happen, but she was just there when the mothers basically were like, they were so fraught. They were like, they inadvertently they just cursed their children.
They just witnessed their 13-year-old sons do coke, and it's so little, and it's on their birthdays, and
that's a good moment. That's a good catalyst. That's a really good catalyst for the Okuko to arrive, and that it was unintentional, but it was still there. Because how are they supposed to know they were cursing their children?
Yeah, I mean, I worked with professors. I mean, that's my job. I work with professors.
Yeah,
and there are some that are they are this entitled. They are this full of themselves. This is, I mean, I've seen professors like this.
Yeah,
this professor's a little too over the top, even. And I mean, I've known professors who have said, "Don't you dare call us employees. We are not employees. That's what staff members are." And it's like, whoa, you're a little too high on your horse there. Yeah, no, this is a real thing. Like, it's kind of, it's amazing how some faculty can be assholes. But this guy was a little too over the top for me. I was like, I can only suspend my...
Yeah. You know what one of my favorite characters was, though? I realize we keep changing topics if we're trying to get around to the certain beats.
This is a lot.
There's a lot. And I know we kind of touched on Padre Sebastian, but I really liked Padre Sebastian.
I did too.
Very good character. I like that he was.
I enjoyed his very sexy description. So I was like, damn, everybody loves the sexy Padre.
Is it just
he's Jamaican too.
Yes,
which
actually,
is awesome.
I'm not gonna lie. Out of all the characters that I would have slept with, Padre Sebastian would be that character.
All right, I gotta throw this in here.
Okay.
But I totally was like, Javier, you totally crushing on Padre. Like, you have to be. Like, I was shipping that too.
Yeah, that moment when
I'm a filthy human being.
That moment when Lupe meets him, and then like he's getting annoyed because there's clearly an attraction there. He's like, "No, he's mine."
Yeah, that's how I read.
He's almost 18.
I also did enjoy the way that Lupe's aunt and uncle's relationship was described.
Yeah,
too. That was very sweet.
They had a sweet relationship. I also like the fact her uncle was the chief of police, and
I like that he believes her in the end. He is a good Tio.
Actually, that was actually a very sweet moment because I mean, Lupe has family troubles. I mean, her dad's basically deadbeat, and the fact that they said, if you'd like, you could stay with us. Because she's originally from Vermont. She is an American that lives in Vermont.
Right. And she doesn't look Puerto Rican, like, at all, because she inherited all of her mother's Irish traits, apparently.
Yes.
Hence why everyone calls her the gringa.
Didn't she have blonde hair like that?
She's blonde, and she's got freckles, and she's basically, she looks white.
Now, the interesting thing is, now I've worked with Puerto Ricans. There was a lot of Puerto Ricans when I worked at Disney World.
Uh-huh.
And they all looked very different. Like, not all of them actually had that tan, dark-haired appearance. They, some were actually, like I saw a lot of pale-skinned Puerto Ricans, some that had fairer hair. So, I don't know if this is, if there is a, disparity in Puerto Rico where it's like, oh, if you look a certain way, but
I mean the only reason we're bringing it up is because it does play into the novel a fair bit.
Yes,
I think naturally, like even within my own family, and we're all like 100% Mexican. One of my aunts is very fair skinned. She didn't have blonde hair, but it was a very light brown. Before she started dyeing it, all these things, but but she. Like, even as a kid, I was like, she looks more white than she looks Hispanic. And even my little cousin, her daughter, you would think she's just a little white girl. But she eats, like, spicier food than I can handle. Actually, but that can be said about my entire family.
Yeah, they will.
I forgot where I was going with this. But, okay, so my thing is, naturally within Puerto Rico, you would have those variations in skin tones and hair colors. I think the thing that isolated, that marked Lupe's character as a gringa is the fact that she, aside from the fact that she just looked white, was that she probably had the accent when she did speak Puerto Rican, or in the way she carried herself. Because, like, I'm like full blood Mexican, like even like native Mexican from my father's side of the family. But when I speak to people, having grown up in the U.S., because I don't have an accent, people they don't think I'm Hispanic. They ask me first if I'm Native American or Hawaiian or Filipino, Pacific Islander of some sort. So, like, for me, and I wanted to make sure I hit on this because I think, from my Latin perspective, you guys might not have connected to this, but like Lupe, like being so upset when she was called gringa and not Puerto Rican, like I could really connect to that because like she didn't grow up connected to her heritage and she wants to feel connected to it. She wants to be Puerto Rican. Like, I grew up in the U.S. I feel very distant from my Mexican heritage because even though I had a good chunk of my family here in the U.S. with me, we didn't focus a lot on like the cultures. Like, we have never like done anything for Day of the Dead. So I didn't learn about Day of the Dead from my family. I learned about it from media, which sucks because I really wish I could like every year I'm like, hey Ma, can we do an ofrenda thing or something, please? And she's like, nah, I mean, yeah, we got dead relatives, but I'm like, please teach me my heritage. And then she's like, why can't you cook a pot of rice and beans? I'm like, you never fucking showed me. So
that was beautiful.
When she got upset about
actually, no, one of the things I was kind of grateful for when reading this novel is like I wanted to hear your perspective because again, I knew you had a similar kind of connection as a Latina American or Latino American or I don't know.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I don't know. Would you? Okay, I'm gonna just ask Latin or Hispanic. Which do you prefer?
I usually go with Hispanic because saying Latino or Latina, obviously that word implies gender. Mm-hmm. So it's just Hispanic, but it also, you guys know me, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know.
I figured I'd just ask, but as also a Hispanic American, similar to Lupe, I kind of wanted to hear your perspective as well. I know there is a difference, Mexican American versus Puerto Rican American, but...
Mm-hmm. I think I think normally Lupe wouldn't be my type of character. I don't think I would have liked her as much as I did if I didn't have those little connections with her where she was like proud that she was able to pronounce something correctly with the accent. And I was like, yeah, oh, I feel you. Because when I speak Spanish, I was told by a coworker once who spoke fluent Spanish, who was Hispanic, you sound like a white girl when you talk Spanish. And I was like, I do, don't I? Okay, gonna carry that with me forever. And like, that's one of the reasons why I don't speak a lot of Spanish, even at home. So I'm trying to get over that. I do speak a lot more Spanish now than I did before, but yeah. So I don't know. I felt some solidarity with Lupe in that regards.
Yeah. I appreciated that aspect of it, like, I mean, I again, maybe not to the same, connect to the same level you could, but it was definitely made apparent in the novel that she wants to belong. She wants it to feel like this is, she's connected to this, and everyone insists on pushing her out.
Yeah, no, that was probably the part that I connected to with the most, in that like they kept calling her gringa, and she's like insisting like, no. And just like, people don't mean to, not always like push you out, but like when it comes to language, like, so I work in a restaurant and I actually have to speak a lot more Spanish there than I did anywhere else that I've worked. But sometimes I'll say I'll go ring up a customer or something, or I'm taking an order, and right away I'm speaking English, even if the family I know I'm looking at is Hispanic. And if they start struggling ordering something in English or trying to say something in English, then I'll make the effort to switch to Spanish. But if I get the feeling like, oh, they understand me fine, they're speaking fine, I'm going to stick to English because I can better communicate that way.
Right.
Feel less of an idiot. But like, literally the week before I started reading this book, I was ringing up this guy, speaking to him in English. He was replying back in English. And then before the transaction finished, he was like, so what, you don't speak Spanish? And I was like, I can speak Spanish, because he stared at me long enough to figure out that I was Latino. But like, he doesn't realize it. But that tone, that accusation of like, why aren't you speaking Spanish? You are clearly Hispanic, so you should be speaking Spanish to me. It was just, it happens so much. Like, you've no idea.
That is, first of all, that's really cruel. I don't like that.
Labels.
Labels.
Everybody wants to put things in boxes.
Well, I mean, it's like, I don't blame anyone for doing it. It's like, for some reason, it's just like, okay, why aren't you? Well, obviously, because I can't speak it. I can, but not that great. You don't want to hear me speak Spanish. But yeah, no, it hit on something in the book that I was like, yep, that's real. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. It was that's a really good like segue to talk about Lupe too, because I know we've talked a little bit about Javier. I mean, Javier's another big one we're gonna hit, but I talked about Padre Sebastian, but do you know who I really liked in this book?
Who?
Pape Gringo.
Pape Gringo. Great rapper name, by the way.
Right. But also, I mean, Carlos, he's just a chill dude.
Yeah, he is.
He's so good to all his old friends, and
very humble despite his fame.
Yeah, the man who became a famous rapper he's an R&B artist.
He's a reggaeton.
Reggaeton, thank you. And yeah, he's a very humble guy. Like, I like the fact that they didn't fall into that whole like, oh, I'm too cool for my friends stereotype that I have seen young adult novels do.
I thought that was going to come up, but it didn't. And I just like that the friendship or the kinship he seemed to feel with Javier was like really genuine, and I really liked that.
I really liked that he ended up being a very good guy.
Yeah.
Because when we learned that he had been spared by El Cuco, I was like, oh no, what if he like wrote the song and is like, what is summoning these murders? Like he had something against his group of friends or something. That's what I thought. That's where I thought it was going to go, that it was going to reveal like, oh, he's actually behind it. But it didn't go that way. I appreciated that he was like, no, I'm a good guy and I'm going to keep singing. I love my friends and family and mi gente.
He is good people, and that's why I liked him.
And a girl's butts.
Well, he did write a whole song about a girl's butt, so
Yeah, but that is like 90% of like, okay, 80% of Latin music.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I got into a lift, and the guy was a lift to Disney. I think it was with Alan, and the guy was playing music, and Alan didn't hear the music. I'd forgotten to say something afterwards, but it literally was a song about a woman's butt. Like, that's why that joke was so funny to me. I was like,
that's why I loved that line so much. That's why I grabbed it for the beginning here.
It's
just
great,
like it's such a good. So and what did we? Here's a good one. Here's a key piece. What did we think of El Cuco?
I like how El Cuco is described here. It's it's just like a shadow or a darkness that can appear in different forms, and that's actually the best way to describe a monster, in my opinion.
and I think that's generally what the boogeyman is, like El Cucuy, and like I don't know where I learned that the boogeyman takes different shapes, but like I know in like my own boogeyman story that I came up forever ago and I will one day dig out and come back to, like that was the boogeyman did. He would appear in whatever scared you the most.
Right.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the boogeyman. I've always been a big fan of the boogeyman. I love his work.
He's amorphous and frightening, and he comes in many guises.
I want more novels on the boogeyman, please. I would love...
Well, I'm glad we read a novel that was all about the boogeyman, basically.
Actually, that's one of the things that attracted me to it, because I was trying to look... when I was looking for, horror novels, just in my spare time, just because... You know what? I read horror for fun.
Yeah, as do I.
I love this. Actually, got recommended on a podcast, and I looked it up, and I was like, "Wait, this takes place in Puerto Rico," which I've never read a novel that takes place in Puerto Rico. That this is very interesting to me. And then not only that, I was like, "Wait, it's about El Cuco, as in El Cucuy Cuco." Because that was hinted in the summary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god. Also, I'm just gonna say that the cover art for this is really cool.
Yeah, I do like the cover a lot.
It's so
the cover is something that would make me pick it up based off my. We're from a horror network, so yeah. It's creepy. Cool. Let me check that out because I like creepy.
Yeah, that's basically. Let's be honest. If I'm in a bookstore and I see like a creepy cover like this, I'm like, let's see the back.
Judge books by their covers.
In this case, yes.
Yeah.
We always say the saying is don't judge a book by its cover, but that's the first thing anyone ever does.
Yeah.
Well, especially if
and authors do know that. That's why.
Yeah.
Guys, don't flake out on your covers.
No.
It's funny. When there were several years where a close friend of mine and I had a tradition where we'd go to, when we were bored, we'd go to Barnes and Noble and we would actually judge books by their covers. We'd literally go to the sci-fi fantasy section, look at all the covers, discuss them, and then be like, okay, which do you think's the best cover on this shelf and which is the worst? And all the worst ones were generally by the publishing company Baen. Baen. They're all very weird looking covers. And usually very wonky.
Never heard of this.
Just something to... Next time we're at Barnes & Noble, we're going to play this game. It'll be fun.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
I want in on this. That actually sounds like it might be a fun podcast.
Judge books by their covers.
Yeah, if we could record a
Oh my god.
Yes. Could you imagine just like going like we go to Powell's?
Yes.
You guys can come to Powell's, come up to Portland and go to Powell's. We'll go to Powell's, scatter, everybody grabs a book, and then we just go record in the coffee shop.
Yeah, there we go.
And then just talk about, so let's take
what were your top 5 covers and why?
and then we guess what the book is about and then read the summary based off the cover and the title. What do we think?
Maybe the goal is to find the worst cover.
That was generally speaking what we tried to do, but usually we would each would choose a cover that we thought was the best on a given shelf, and then we'd move to the next shelf and look at the covers there. It was a weird thing, and we were like teenagers when we did this, but it was fun.
I'd be down for this. I'd be down for like each of us picks like 2 or 3 covers, and then we try to... or one.
I will make it a special episode of Darkly Lit when you guys come visit me.
Yes! Oh my gosh. Okay, we're doing this. Okay. You heard it here first, folks. Awesome.
We're going to do a judge a book by its cover special.
Just completely arbitrary. No matter, it doesn't matter what the
we'll
book
call
is.
It, if we make it a podcast, we'll call it Don't Judge This Podcast by Its Cover.
There you go.
Don't judge
something dumb like that.
Yes!
Don't judge a podcast by its cover.
We need really fantastic cover art, though, for that podcast.
I know. All right. Getting back to the book. I want to...
Go ahead.
I just want to say real quick something else that I really enjoyed from the book. And I don't know a lot about Puerto Rican culture, but there is a Puerto Rican restaurant that I have been to a couple times.
I knew you were going to mention food. I knew you were going to mention food.
Well, no, because like we mentioned how very real and like great the setting is throughout the book. How we get touches of like just the setting of Puerto Rico. But what really sold it for me were those moments when we got food and food descriptions and just the enjoyment of food, because that's where the heart of any culture is in this. So very much appreciate the foodie in me. Very much appreciated that, and that sealed the deal for me.
By the way, I didn't know you had a Puerto Rican restaurant near you. That's another thing we should do. I don't think we have a Puerto Rican restaurant near us.
We could find one.
We could find one, but
I have one that I didn't realize was one until this a girl took me on a date there. So
nice.
Good. Yep, a little on the pricey side, but good. So we'll go.
So how about that ending, everybody?
Yeah.
Have we finally gotten around to talking about
it's a
the other criticism I have of the
my favorite thing about the ending I will start with is that despite everything going on, Papi Gringo was like still singing.
Yes! I tell you, he's the fucking man. Papi Gringo's the best.
He's like, this is all crazy, but I got a show to put on.
Give it up for my brother Javier and my sister Lupe.
So that part, I was digging that part. That was good. And I like that as they're both being pulled up into like a hell vortex, like, nah, bro, if you're going, I'm going too. I'm like, God bless you, Carlos.
But he's gonna go singing.
But he's gonna go singing because that's all he. Remember, the girl in his arm doesn't matter. It's all about the music for him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's a true artiste.
And then, but then
I think. Sorry.
You got Kino.
Oh boy, Kino. But before that, can I say, because I started to mention this earlier, I was waiting with anticipation for the fight or the confrontation between Lupe and Marisol. Yeah. And when it came, I was like, yes, oh my god, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be so angry that she's literally going to try and kill her. I wanted it to be that bad. And then it turned, and then I'm like, the fight ended. I'm like, okay, I'm glad that no one died. But then,
it was
after that, the fact that they're cool was kind of weird. And then her reveal, I wasn't trying to kill you. I was just trying to scare you so you would go back to Canada. Or I'm like, you put a knife to her throat and screamed at her about how she was everything wrong and that you were going to kill her. I'm sorry. And then you're cool after that. I realize you all kind of work together to stop Javier from being killed. Okay. So this is all, the reason this all happens is we got a culmination of stuff that I think, to sum it up best, feels like a Disney final confrontation.
It gets wrapped up a little too neatly. It turns out, one of the most tragic parts is Padre Sebastian dying in quotation marks, and then it turns out he's not dead.
I was fine with that. I was fine with thinking that he died and then finding out he wasn't dead.
That's fine.
I'm
not a fan of death fake outs. I'm just kind of like, oh god.
I will accept the death fake out only if it's done reasonably. I think I've seen too many really bad death fake outs. The fact that this one was off screen or off page, I guess, was fine for me. I noticed did any of you read the acknowledgement section at the end?
I was realizing as like a minute ago that I hadn't.
There's a bit in here that I really dug where, let me find it. Here we go. Mi prima Terra Davia, who not only did a sensitivity read, but took me around the island for research, talking it through and making invaluable suggestions, though I ignored her repeated urging to kill the priest. You've got to kill the priest.
I mean, she came close.
She was close.
I mean, it would have worked for me either way.
Yeah, I'm fine with the fake out. I'm fine with it because I thought Marisol was gonna be the big baddie, and it ended up being Kino. And I wish it had been Marisol because Kino. I know I said earlier that all the characters are well written. I have to take that back because of Kino.
Yeah, Kino's kind of one note douchebag narcotics guy.
Yeah.
Gangster.
And I know, like, the author may have probably done that because he's the one who ends up being taken by El Cuco instead of Javi.
Mm-hmm.
How did that work, though?
I know.
It's like they're like there needs to be a price paid or something. Like, well, everybody just benefited because because Kino gets taken by El Cuco, but you'd think it would have to be something with more significance to everybody in the group.
Yeah.
Instead, it just feels like El Cuco just did them a favor by.
Yeah, and I know that, like, I know, yeah, that's I have an issue with that there. I think one thing I would have liked to have seen stressed more is that Kino is what would have become of Los Cangrejos if they had continued on their path, if they hadn't died. That's
right.
They would have become. That's who Javier would have been.
Right.
If he hadn't cleaned up. And I wish that had been stressed a bit more, because I feel that would give a little more impact of, like, of El Cuco taking Kino, because that would have been like, okay, we're seeing El Cuco this thing take this guy, like, oof, but El Cuco in that, the way I'm seeing it is like, if that had been stressed a little more, El Cuco taking Kino would have been just kind of like representative of like the drugs and that lifestyle and that darkness taking Javier away.
Right.
If he had not cleaned up. I don't know. I'm not making sense.
No.
But yeah,
that's a great. That's good. That's good English. That's good, like, metaphor, like, writing thinking, and I
Absolutely.
like that. I really like that. It's good. I think, and I'm with you. I think the problem was Kino's there, but he's never really, like, it doesn't feel like as personal or as invested a threat as Marisol was.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because she has an emotional connection to the whole plot. And made for kind of a sympathetic antagonist, which I thought was important. Even if she had even if things had gone badly with her, if she had been played up more, like, and it hadn't just been like, oh, we're cool now, and there was a big misunderstanding thing at the end, things didn't have to go badly for her. There could have been a redemption thing still at the end,
absolutely.
you know, and there kind of was, but it felt. Again,
Forced.
so the reason I say it felt like a Disney climax is because it's very spectacle-y. Because, like, all of a sudden, Kino is there hanging from the background trying to shoot Javier, and it's like a big it's like this felt so grounded in this kind of cool, like, I don't know, it felt too spectacular. Like, it felt like they're in this big thing in front of everybody, and there's the one character. It felt neat. And it felt like it felt like watching the climax to a Disney movie, like a Disney cartoon.
Marisol remembers her crush on Carlos all of a sudden.
And suddenly, and, like, maybe they're not exactly cool, but now she and Lupe are fine. And I'm like, I don't know, I feel like there's still way too much bad blood there.
Yeah.
there should have been way more.
I had some issues. That's all. I had some.
It cleaned up too nicely, and, like, I get that it's a young adult novel, but we had some really dark, gritty moments earlier on with, like, is he staring at those drugs kind of moments. Like, so I feel like
murdering a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like we could have handled a much darker ending if we had already read all that leading up to it.
Yeah.
I don't even mind if it was an ending where things came together and everyone did okay. It's just the moment I kind of lost it was when Kino was there hanging onto the bars at the back of the stage like a monkey shooting at Javier.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he just graduated to kind of mustache twirling villain. a little bit.
mean,
That's my main.
there's also
That is my main criticism.
And right before that, there's this great like moment where Javier's basically going through like an existential crisis with El Cuckoo.
He's having the Ghost of Christmas Past kind of deal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like that could have led into a more interesting ending, or like maybe that could have, like, maybe the way he's showing he's like, I'm not gonna give into my addiction could have like stopped El Cuckoo or something. I don't know, but just like
with a little help from Las Madres.
Yeah, something like that. But and even like maybe that could be a part of Marisol's redemption. Like maybe she could have done something small.
If she had been more of the catalyst, I got the impression from the beginning she was more of the catalyst of El Cuco. Like maybe maybe she was the source. You know.
Well, I mean that was the idea, is that she told her parents because
right, and a lot of it is in her. And if it had been like one way to help her would be to finally drive that last bit of darkness out, to find some sense of the person underneath it. You know, the person who hasn't been tormented by El Cuco her whole life. You know, like. I don't know. There was so much potential in Marisol, and I feel like there's a lot of it wasn't really given the proper room at the end to be given. The ending feels the silly parts of the ending feel so incongruous with the incredible like moments of humanity and darkness and light that come earlier in the novel.
Agreed.
I think that's my big problem. I don't even care. I said, I don't even care that the ending was happy and that Lupe and Javier kissed. Like I was all, yay, good for you guys. You know, like I wanted that. But
but I'm with you. The thing is, though, I'm glad about this because sometimes an ending can just ruin a whole book, and it doesn't.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
It doesn't. But it didn't. Oh, okay.
It left me wanting a little bit. That's the worst thing I can say. And this was a book that I read in 2 sittings, and I was up very late at night reading it. I think there's a quote on the back of the book from Paul Tremblay, saying, flat out unputdownable, you'll want to follow Lupe and Javier all over Puerto Rico. And I was like, hell yeah, Paul, I'm right with you. Like, I could not put this book down.
I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would for a young adult novel.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I was surprised too when I read it. I was like, because I love the ideas behind it. I'm like, okay, I'm curious to see how this goes, because young adult novels for me are hit or miss. I like a lot of them. There's some really good ones out there, and like I have some favorites. But then there's some young adult novels that are a little too ooey gooey, heterosexual love. Wow, I feel so embarrassed right now for you because I'm 30 and you are Abby. But and there's only a little bit of that in here, but for the most part, I love the setting. I love El Cuco.
Did you feel like Lupe and Javier, their relationship, their friendship I actually felt was actually fairly organic?
It was. They're both very fiery, stubborn personalities, but they still work well together.
Yeah.
For me, there was a lot of just like rolling my eyes, like them kissing. Like the last line is, "Oh, kiss." I was like, "Ugh," but. Like, I didn't hate, I'm not saying that with, like, distaste or hate, because, like, if it had been them, if their little bickering, of, like, if Lupe had been a boy, I would have been eating it up and drooling.
If this would have been 2 girls or 2 boys, I'd be the same way, too.
I'm biased in that sense, but, like, genuinely, I did enjoy the characters, their journey. The end was, but you know what? At the end, I'm really glad I read this. Like, I will recommend this to my little cousin, who I think is the right age for this.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I think all in all, with the exception of parts of the ending, it is a solid read, a good story, and I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the end for 2019, so we're going to be reading another book for January, of course, but we're going to do stuff a little differently. We're going to make this a little more like a book club, and we're going to read this next upcoming book in chunks. So we'll read a little bit, discuss that part, and then read a little bit more and discuss that part. We'll get a more better idea of like how much will be read. coming January 13th, but I feel like this will allow us to read a lot more longer novels. Because I one of the things I think a lot of listeners have noticed is the fact that we've been reading a lot more shorter stuff because of this month length. So I think let's try something new.
So starting January, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy.
What?
Yes, we're reading War and Peace.
What?
No, just kidding. Actually, I am so excited to. I read it already, but I'm going to reread it. I'm so excited. It's Let the Right One In by John Avide Lindquist.
Woo!
I'm so excited for this.
I really love the movie. I haven't read the book yet, even though I own it.
I haven't read the book either.
Yes, I'm looking forward to this.
Such a good book, guys. It's so good.
It comes highly recommended. So you can all follow us on our various platforms and read. We really encourage you, read the book with us. So for the next few months, we will be going over a few chapters in chunks. We'll let you know which chapters we're reading as we get closer, so you can join us in the discussion. And we will.
I think did we mention this? The plan is we are going to post the reading schedule on the the Creative Horror, which is the Creative Horror website, which is the home of Darkly Lit.
CreativeHorror.com.
And we'll also post it on Twitter as well.
Yes.
But yes, we will let you know how long of the book we'll start with. And then if you have any questions, only talk about, even if you read ahead or you've read the whole book, start with the questions that address that part only, please, if you decide to ask questions.
No spoilers.
And we also want to try taking some audio submissions. If you want to record your questions or your comments on the chunk that we read for that episode, we're going to try and pull those in again and share those on the podcast.
So, any other plugs for upcoming podcasts?
Well, UCA's trucking along at a nice pace. Stay tuned. We're finally going to start getting around to getting some user submissions, and we've had a couple. So we're going to be doing more stories on that podcast. But in the near future, you can expect a couple of looks, a couple of different things. We're going to be going back to the SCP Foundation to continue to explore Lord Bung's confinement series and the SCPs that inspired them. And then a little after that, we're going to have a discussion about the Lighthouse, because I really want to talk about the Lighthouse, and so does literally everybody else in creative horror. So, hey, we're going to spill our beans and talk about that one. It's almost like it might be one of the most David movies ever made in terms of horror movies I've seen, but we'll talk about it.
We'll get into
anyway, that's the main thing I have coming up. And obviously, Anna Musings, Kayla and I's other podcast on the Benview Network, is making good headway as well. We are now well into the 90s at this rate, and in December we will be talking. We're talking about Aladdin and The Nightmare Before Christmas. So
that'll be fun.
Yep.
Can I just pitch to you guys, like, if you ever have an episode where you don't have a guest and you will like my company, please let me know.
Absolutely.
We don't have
benefactor of our Disney Plus.
Yes, I do technically supply your Disney access,
and we like you, and we like what you have to offer as an artist and a friend and a person who appreciates Disney and good storytelling. So yes, of course, you are welcome to join us anytime we don't have a
guest
already lined up.
I could tell you what the next one is automatically, but I'll get into
we'll get to that when we finish the recording.
I do want to plug one thing. Very sad. Hey, December. Wait, it is December. This is going out January? No, this is still December.
December 13th.
Right. I know that. So, creative horror fans may or may not have noticed that we didn't get a witching hour for December. No one's called me out on it, so I guess no one noticed. That's fine. But January, please tune in to what is going to be the last episode of the witching hour, and I'm trying to plan something fun for that. So stay tuned. January, we'll have hit 5 years, and I think that's a good place to
time to
blow out the candle, I guess.
Time to let the witching hour come to an end.
Yes.
All right. But yes, thank you all for your for following up, for your questions. We hope to hear more from you in the coming year. We wish you all a happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, and a good new year coming up. And yeah, join us on the 13th for Let the Right One In.
Well, let's... shall we blow out the candles? I don't think El Coco is going to come after us.
Have we been good? Have any of you been doing coke?
Oh, I am never good.
Well, that explains that shadow that's been following you this whole time.
Uh-oh.
That's actually my boyfriend, though.
Good evening, intrepid listeners. This is the Pasta Shade, the host of Midnight Marinara, and this podcast is part of CreativeHorror.com, a network of podcasts and creators working together to build a constructive community of horror fans. For more content like this, visit us at CreativeHorror.com.